Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we are looking at Sliver Tribal. So Sliver Tribal can obviously have many different commanders, but I think Sliver Queen is the best one because it has the most combo potential with its ability to pay 2 mana to make a 1/1 Sliver token. So first things first, let's just go ahead and look at all the Slivers in the deck to figure out what exactly we're doing. And like how you can have tons of different commanders for Slivers, since there are many different legendary Slivers, even in 5 colors, there's also just many different Slivers that you could choose to include in your deck. So here's the ones I'm picking and why I want them. So Vassal Sliver, 3 mana 2/2, and it says all Slivers have sacked this creature, add double black. So this basically allows all of your Slivers to become Vassal Thralls and get fast mana if you need them. There's also going to be combos involving sacking stuff potentially. We've got Cloud Treader Sliver, which is all Slivers have flying and haste. So this is relevant either for the beatdown plan to get through any blocks, or the haste also matters for combining with the mana adding abilities of other Slivers. We've got Crystalline Sliver, all Slivers have Shroud, and Diffusion Sliver. Whenever a Sliver creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 2. So basically all of your Slivers have Ward 2. These are the protection effects of the Slivers. We've got Gemhide and Mana Weft Sliver. All Slivers become Birds of Paradise, basically. Useful for ramping out. Harmonic Sliver. All Slivers have, when this permanent enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment, so Aura Shards. Hibernation Sliver. All Slivers have pay 2 life to bounce this permanent back to your hand. Relevant for combos or just to protect your Slivers from sweepers or other removal spells. Lava Belly Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have, when this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, and you gain 1 life. This is, of course, going to be relevant for combos. Metallic Sliver, a 1 mana 1/1 that doesn't do anything. This is going to be relevant for combos. Morophon, 7 mana Changeling. It's a 6/6. You choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type you cast cost Wooburg less. So all of our Slivers cost Wooburg less. And other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. This is here primarily for the Wooburg cost reduction. We've got Necrotic Sliver. All Slivers have 3 mana, sack this permanent, destroy target permanent, so all Slivers become Vindicates. Not really that great of an effect, since paying 3 mana and sacking a creature just to destroy a permanent is not really that great in terms of the how much it costs to do it, but it is an option that I would like to have open in case we need to blow up things that are not just artifacts or enchantments. Root Sliver, which it can't be countered and Slivers can't be countered. We've got Scuttling Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have 2 mana, untap this creature. Again, very combo oriented. And then we've got some 5 mana Slivers that are all Wooburg cost. So these all do various things. Sliver Legion is all Sliver creatures get +1/+1 for each other Sliver on the battlefield. So basically your own coat of arms just for Slivers. This is in order so that you can go on the beatdown route in case you don't have a combo. Then you've got Sliver Overlord as a way to tutor up Slivers. The second ability, gain control of target Sliver, not really that relevant. It's mostly here just to be a tutor for other Slivers, primarily just to get combo pieces. And then the first Sliver, which has Cascade and gives all of our Slivers Cascade, mostly here just to be a value piece. So then what is the rest of the deck doing besides just the Slivers? We've got a little bit of sweepers, we've got some tutors, including Quarter Calling. We've got a bunch of ramp, including creatures that are not Slivers, just because we do need a bunch of ramp spells. Urza's Incubator, just choose Slivers, and then all your Slivers cost 2 less. Leyline of Abundance, this is obviously good with any of our mana dorks, but it's also going to be relevant for combos later. Some protection, Rainbow Mana Base, including a Gaia's Cradle, some counter spells, card draw, including things that are tribal based like Distant Melody and Pact of the Serpent, which draw cards based on the total amount of 1 creature type that we have on the battlefield, and Kindred Discovery, which will draw a card whenever we have a Sliver enter or attack, also Skull Clamp. And then finally, the combos. So how do these work? Well, there's a whole bunch of them. The easiest one to understand is Molten Echoes. This one says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may add an amount of colorless mana equal to the number of creatures you control that share a type with it. So obviously this goes infinite with Sliver Queen. You pay 2 mana, you put a 1/1 Sliver into play, it triggers, and even if Sliver Queen and that token are the only 2 creatures that you have that are Slivers on the battlefield, you'll get 2 mana from the Mana Echoes, which allows you to activate Sliver Queen again. which will put a Sliver token into play, and this time it will generate 3 colorless mana, and you can just use the Sliver Queen to generate infinite colorless mana and infinite 1/1 Sliver tokens with that ability. Additionally, Biomancer's Familiar will reduce the cost to activate the Sliver Queen. So in combination with Ashnod's Altar, that also allows you to sack the Sliver for 2 mana, and then pay only 1 mana to put another Sliver into play. So that will also be infinite colorless mana. And then you have the combos that involve Hibernation Sliver or Cloudstone Curio, where you can bounce slivers back to your hand. So if you have Mana Weft or Gemhide Sliver, let's say you can then, and you can also combo that with Intruder Alarm. So let's say you've got Gemhide or Mana Weft, right? And all of your slivers have the ability to tap for mana. So if you've got Haste via Cloud Shredder Sliver, then that means you can play a Sliver, tap it for mana, and then have the Cloudstone or Hibernation Sliver bounce a Sliver back to your hand. Then you can play a Sliver, tap the Sliver for mana, bounce a Sliver back to your hand. And this will wind up triggering either Mana Echoes for colorless mana, or Lava Belly Sliver to deal 1 damage to an opponent. So using that, you can use Cloudstone Curio, Hibernation Sliver to bounce and recast slivers, which will generate mana from Mana Echoes or deal damage here. And this is why Metallic Sliver is so useful, because it's only 1 mana and colorless, so it works well with Mana Echoes or any of your bounce effects that are allowing you to replay and activate slivers immediately. So for example, Metallic Sliver can be its own outlet. So let's say you have Cloud Shredder, Mana Weft, or Gemhide, and then one of these bounce effects. You can go cast Metallic Sliver, tap it for mana immediately, bounce a 1-drop back to your hand, then play that 1-drop, bounce Metallic Sliver back to your hand. And of course, these combos also work with non-slivers as well, specifically in the case of Cloudstone Curio. Cloudstone and Hibernation also work with Intruder Alarm, so if you have multiple mana dorks, including mana from Mana Weft or Gemhide Sliver, you can play a creature, untap all of your mana dorks, tap them all for mana using the Intruder Alarm, bouncing 1 thing back to your hand, play another thing, untap all of your guys, generate infinite mana that way. Basal Sliver, because it's the sacrifice for double black, is basically the Sliver version of Ashnod's Altar, so it can sub in for Ashnod's Altar when you don't have that. And because it's a Sliver, it's just better than Ashnod's. It generates black mana instead of colorless mana. It's a Sliver, so you can tutor for it. It's a Sliver, so it gets the abilities of the other slivers, and so on. Then you've also got Enduring Renewal. So Enduring Renewal is you play with the cards in your hand revealed, but that's not the relevant part. The relevant part is if you would draw a creature from your library, discard it. Whenever a creature goes to your graveyard from the battlefield, put that creature into your hand. So basically, if you sack a creature, or it dies for any reason, instead of dying, it just goes back to your hand. So now you can use Ashnod's Altar, Basal Sliver, etc. to sack, let's say, Metallic Sliver. It dies, but then it just goes back to your hand. Then you recast it, then you sack it, it goes back to your hand, etc. So Metallic Sliver plus Enduring Renewal plus either Ashnod's Altar or Basal Sliver is infinite mana. And then finally, Scuttling Sliver. So Scuttling Sliver is, albeit another 4 mana combo, or another 4 card combo, is a way to go infinite. So if you've got Biomancer's Familiar or any effect that reduces the activation cost of creatures, and you have Leyline of Abundance, which allows creatures to add an additional mana when they tap for mana, and you've got Gemhide or Mana Weft Sliver, you can tap any of your slivers for mana, because they have the mana from Mana Weft or Gemhide, and then you can untap those same slivers. So you generate a mana from the sliver, you generate an extra mana from Leyline of Abundance, and then you can untap them for 1 mana using the Scuttling Sliver in combination with Biomancer's Familiar or Training Grounds or any other effect that reduces the activation cost. So you tap for 2, but you only untap for 1, so you generate infinite mana. And then even if you don't have any other infinite mana outlet, although you should, because you can just put Sliver Queen into play directly, but even if that's not relevant, you can also dump all of the mana into Leyline of Abundance to put infinite +1 counters on your creatures and win that way. There's also lots of other lines you can take. So of course you've got tutors, including things like Sliver Overlord to go tutor for the exact sliver that you need, Chord of Calling to go tutor for the exact sliver that you need. So although many of the combos involve 3 or 4 pieces, you also have tutors to go find them. And it's also not just like 4 cards that only work with exactly the 3 other cards in their combo. They work with lots of other cards in the combo pieces. So again, it's going to be a Sliver deck that involves many different combos, or you can just beat down with stuff like Sliver Legion or draw cards with like all of this stuff. And Sliver Queen can act as an infinite mana outlet from the command zone. So that is Sliver Tribal in EDH.